Hello and welcome to a special edition of the Ospreys Eyrie with me, Lee G, and joining me this evening is my very special guest, Nick Williams. Good evening, Nick.
Good evening.
So it's a little bit of a different setup and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna make the assumption that most people know what's gone on and James leaving and this, that, and the other. So the other guys couldn't make it tonight. So Nick's a presenter on our Pod Cymru. So and a very large Ospreys fan, as we could see from the background, Nick. So we weren't planning on doing anything. We were going to just let the Ospreys Eyrie kind of calm down for a while, and then we were going to kick it off, revamp it in January. But given today's news, it was kind of appropriate to have a chat. So before we get into the Toby Booth stuff, let's just kind of say that we are going to recruit new people for January. We were going to relaunch the Eyrie, give it a bit of a fresh look, a bit of a fresh feel. And we're looking for people to join. So if I'm going to put my hand up now, as most of you will know, I'm a Scarlet. Don't hold that against me, okay? I'm not gonna do anything. I've already told my Scarlets mates today that we were really close to being in this position last year, so let's just kind of keep a lid on it and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I want the Ospreys Eyrie to be run by Ospreys supporters. So if you fancy having a go at it, if you fancy just kind of seeing how things work out and all of that kind of malarkey, drop us a line either by email or DM us or whatever, and we'll have a chat. Okay, so that's coming in January. We were planning on having interviews with players this week. Right up until kind of 6 o'clock last night, we were trying to sort out which players and times and all of that kind of stuff. That obviously changed today, so we won't be doing player interviews this week, but it's still a big game. And then the final thing before we get onto Toby Booth is so the winner of the competition is Anthony. So Anthony's won some tickets to Scarlet's game. So Anthony, the email is there. I'll be in touch and we'll hopefully do some stuff on socials before and after, which would be great. That's all the admin out of the way. That's all the boring stuff out of the way. Let's talk Toby Booth. So for those who don't know, and whether you've been living under a rock or whatever, so Toby Booth left the Ospreys with immediate effect today. So, Nick, I mean, you found out when I messaged you, and with an ambiguous message. So, what have you made of today's events, mate?
I think first and foremost, a shock. As I say, I was busy doing something else this morning when you messaged me. I obviously, as I mentioned, I was on the rap podcast last night, and I was very disappointed with our performance in Montpellier. And we've had a few of those this season. I was disappointed with our performance, certainly away to Zebra, and also when we went to Munster. There's no obviously disgrace in losing in Munster, but we had a gale behind in our backs, at our backs in the second half, and we failed to score a point. And I suppose you could argue it was an accident waiting to happen. I don't know what's gone on in the background. It seemed quite strange, the announcement just before the season started that Toby would be leaving us. It was by mutual agreement at that point. They wouldn't be renewing his contract at the end of the year, and it felt he'd come to the end of the road with the Ospreys, and the Ospreys were making a decision that Mark Jones would take over the head coach role. I think he's been there just over 12 months now as defence coach, and obviously one of our legends, Justin Tipuric, would be taking over Mark's role as defence coach. So I just like to reflect really on the period that Toby's had with us. I'd like to pay tribute to him because if you think back when he came in, we had a really rocky period before leading to that. And we had a decent squad at that time as well. You know, I know we've lost a lot of really key players over the time that Toby's been there. No fault of Toby's, just through retirements and the financial situation that all the clubs in Wales have found themselves. Some of the star players have moved on. But, you know, he came in, and for us as fans, I think we all immediately took to him. He was honest with us, uh, but he didn't tend to make, you know, he always tried to make the best of what we had. And in preparation for this evening, I was reading an article which the Ospreys website had put out at the time. He was actually appointed a little bit like Mark Jones in the sense that he was appointed, I think, in the February of 2020. But he at the time, I think he was coaching in Harlequins. You know, he's got a strong track record, having been at Bath and London Irish before that. But he didn't actually join us until the summer of 2020. But in that article, it talked about him as being a deep thinker of the game, as being somebody who would develop relationships, who would try and develop people and develop leadership. And I was lucky enough in my working life to have leadership roles. I'm sure I didn't do as well as Toby, but that's what I always try to adhere to as well. And when you think, well, that was written then, I think all of those things he's proven to be the case. He's done that very well. I think he, first and foremost, especially, you know, being a good rugby man, he's also a really decent man. And I think the fans, the media seem to appreciate him, you know, for some of the messages I've seen about him leaving today. I think he was a good person to deal with. And it's very, very sad that we weren't, as fans, able to give him a send off. There's been some disappointing results this year, that's for sure. How much that is down to uncertainty in the back room. Obviously, since he's been in the role, going back to last January, we've had a new CEO in Lance Bradley. I don't know how their relationship, what their relationship is, and how good and strong that relationship is. But it's just really sad, and certainly wish him all the very, very best. Whether it's a role in rugby, and I'm sure you'll get offers, or it's a role outside of rugby, because I think he's done some university type of work around leadership and coaching and so on. I wish him all the very best to him and his family, and to thank him sincerely for bringing hope and a bit of enjoyment back to being an Osprey fan.
Yeah, and I think looking at it from the outside, a lot of the messages today have been about him as an individual. I think people are very capable of separating him as an individual and him as a coach. You know, the coach gets marked, if you like, it gets analysed on the results, and that's pretty much it. But the individual gets assessed on all those other things you're talking about. You know, how he relates to people, how honest he is, and even as a fan of another side, you still appreciate that. You can still respect the man for what he's done. And yeah, I think he did bring a bit of a steadying hand to the Ospreys and to Welsh rugby. To be honest, you know, in the time that he came in, from the time he came in to the time he left, everybody else has changed their coach as well. So, you know, having somebody there for 5 years, which is what he would have been at the end of the season, um, does kind of give it a little bit more of a steady ship. And he does kind of have that air about him, that kind of, you know, don't worry, calm down, been there before, I've done all of this before, it'll be okay, here's the plan, this is what we're going to do, and this is how it's going to work. So I think people appreciated his honesty, his openness. Um, and I've seen, you know, comments today about he would talk to fans after the game, and then he'd say to little kids, right, don't go anywhere. I've got to go run and do a TV interview, but I'll come back.
Yeah.
And he absolutely would. And he would make the kids day, and they'd stand there in the cold, and he'd come back, and he'd carry on talking to the kids because he knew that's what was important. And fair play to the guy. Just as an individual, that's that's the kind of person you need in an organization. And full respect to him on that. Now the flip side of that was what I said about the coach. Um, so when you look at his record, I think it is, he has won a lot of games, but his record this year, and I think the way things have been going this year is why he's gone now. So what have you made of his record over the last couple of years, and the how that's been like different for this year?
Uh, I think he comes from his first coaching job was in an academy, I think, with Bath. I think it was Bath or maybe Irish. I can't remember. So you can see that's come through strong through his work at the Ospreys. He's given young, and we've had to, haven't we? As we all have, because we just haven't got the money to go and bring in lots of players. So he's given youth its opportunity. But I think we based our game, he's well on a forward base platform, and slowly that's been eroded. We possibly overachieved last year. We had some heavy defeats, remember. So even though we had some good wins, you could argue we only beat the teams which were below us or around us. When we actually came up against the top teams, we usually got a bit of a dicking sometimes. So that is something that this year we haven't been able to do. I think losing Nicky Smith was a big loss to us because he was not there's anything against Gareth Thomas, who's a very good player as well. But between the two of them, we had two good props. Botha hasn't played much this year compared to where the other years where he's been a stalwart for us. So once you've taken that scrum away from us, it's taken an important part of our game plan away. Even when we've been successful, we've never been playing particularly sparkling rugby. It's pragmatic, it's hard,
Mm.
and this year, not having that secure forward platform has hit us hard. Partly due to people moving on, partly due to injuries, which happens to all clubs. But I think with the Ospreys and it's hit us in one area, the second row in particular, where we've lost key players, which would allow us to give us that forward base, that forward platform to stay in games. Uh, and then once we're in an arm wrestle, we'd find a way. This year, we haven't been able to do that.
Yeah, and I agree with all of that. It's never been the most attractive rugby to watch, but Toby Booth knew how to kind of let people know that this is as exciting as it's going to get. And when you're not used to winning and you start winning, you don't care.
No.
You don't care if it's the amount of times last season that I'd go, do you know what? I'd take a Scarlets victory or a 3-0 with a dodgy penalty in the 85th minute.
Absolutely.
When you're in that place, that's what you take. And that was where he came in. And like you say, his record over the years has been, up and down. He's had some really good seasons. He's had a couple of iffy seasons, but I think his attitude and his plan and his way of doing things has been what's kept him there. And yeah, I don't know what's changed this season. Yes, players are missing. You've lost a couple. It just feels like, I don't know. Last year there was a lot of talk about the attitude in camp, how everyone was there for each other, and that conversation has kind of gone away this year. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
And I'm just looking at what's in the press, and the press will report what the press want to report. So that attitude may well be in camp. It just maybe didn't feel like it from when you watch some of the games. So yeah, it's his record is decent. It's not amazing.
Mm.
It's decent, but when you consider the resources that he had to play with, yeah, I think the fact that he got anything out of the players is is really good. The fact that he got what he did out of them is nothing short of amazing on some of the good years, like
No, and when you think of, some of the teams and the resources, financial resource in particular, there's some of the teams we finished above last year. That was a major achievement.
Mm. So he's been there 5 years. So what would your best bits of his
Every
tenure
time he
be then?
grabs the Scarlets.
You couldn't resist it, could you?
Well, we did it quite often under Toby.
All right. Yeah, I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one. Other than beating the Scarlets, what else stands out in your head
I think the game at Leicester away. That was to play we'd lost to Leicester at Swansea, and then we went there in the Champions Cup, and they wanted to go through and get a home draw and so on. To go there, it was only a point. I think we Jack Morgan scored a try in the 81st minute, and we kicked Owen Williams kicked the conversion to win by a point. That was amazing. And then obviously we gave Saracens again. We know how strong they are. Decent game in the round of 16, and then obviously beating Montpellier home and away. I think the same year. And then the run last year as well in the Champions Cup, getting to the winning the round of 16 game. We didn't play particularly well at Gloucester, but it was still an achievement to get to the quarter final of that. So I think those for me would be the highlights. A few European games, and then just getting through at the end, scraping into the top eight. Uh, I knew we were never going to win in Munster in the quarter final, but just to get that far, given all the injuries, given the financial situation of all the regional clubs in Wales last year, was a big achievement. So I think that's what I would say were the highlights. But also, as I say, the way he conducted himself throughout his tenure.
And we'll touch on listeners' comments in a mo, but that comes through kind of strong. I think quite a few people have got quite a different kind of games that they went to watch, and that's the one that sticks in the memory, and this is the one for me that sticks, and all that kind of stuff. So he's done something right, because there's a lot of people with a lot of good memories, and if you can generate, there's a saying that people don't remember things, they remember feelings. You remember how things made you feel. You remember if watching a game made you feel part of something, if watching a game made you feel, over the moon. And those are the feelings that he leaves behind. And I think he can be proud of what he's leaving behind. It Whenever something finishes like this, it's very, very rare that somebody goes, "Okay, I've just won the league, I've just won the European Cup. I think I've had enough now. I'm off." It's always that case that you, even when you win the league or the European Cup, you go, "I'll just have one more season. Well, just see if I can do one more season." So it never ends in a good place. Like I say, it would have been nice for you guys to be able to say goodbye to him on the weekend, but yeah, like I said, it is what it is, and I guess that's the reality of leaving. So where where do you see the Ospreys now? 4 days out from probably the biggest game of the season. Head coach goes. Is it going to be a bounce back? A player's going to respond? Is it going to be, what's the point in coming into training? Where are the Ospreys now?
I think there will be a bounce back. I'd expect a bit of a bounce back after Saturday anyway, because they didn't do justice to themselves at all. And statistically, that when somebody in football or rugby and they have a new manager, coach, whatever the sport is, there tends to be a little bit of a bounce, doesn't it, as you've referred to. So I would certainly expect us to put on a better performance on Saturday, we'll be up for it. I'd imagine, and I suppose part of the argument about, why was it announced so early that he was leaving was, well, would players know who they're playing for? There'll be players coming to the end of their contracts, and would want to renew their contracts, one would hope, and stay with us. So now they know exactly who do they have to impress. And obviously the other coaches, but in particular Mark Jones, they know exactly who they're playing for. It's Mark Jones. So in some respects, it gives some clarity. Uh, and, hopefully, my view is if we lose these two derby games now, our URC season is over. I can't, we're not going to come top eight. So these are key games, and the players will know that. And hopefully, as I say, we'll have a response from the players, both to say thank you for Toby, and also they're playing for their own futures in some regards as well.
I'd tell you what would be nice. It would be nice to fill the stadium on Saturday, or come pretty damn close to it. To get a big, massive crowd there. I know Toby won't be there, but to maybe after the final whistle or before kick-off or whatever, to just say thank you somehow. And I'm sure that can be done. I'm sure that it's not that difficult to arrange a little slot for 2 minutes to say thank you. But it will be good to see a full crowd there for it. And I think both teams now, Scarlets are playing really well. Ospreys are in a bit of a wobbly bit. They say that you've now got this bounce back. Plus, it's a derby. It's actually building to be quite an important game. For both sides. Scarlets need to kick on. Scarlets need, if they're going to be top eight, they need to win these two games. If Ospreys are going to avoid being rooted to the bottom, they need to win this game. It's a local derby, so everyone needs to win this game. And then you throw in Toby Booth leaving, and it's like, right, Ospreys need to win to say thank you, and Scarlets need to win to just take that away from the local rivals. It's got everything, hasn't it? It's building to be a really, really important game on this. So it will be good to see a
I
full
think,
stadium.
yeah, well, I think another mistake, the Osprey, not mistake, but we know we're moving. We know that the stadium's too big. Even when we've been successful on these games, when I was down there in the season ticket, a good gate would be 10, 11,000. Even for the Scarlet game. I don't think I would very much doubt we get that anything like that. So that uncertainty as well hasn't helped things down there. Knowing that we're moving, and now knowing we're not going to be moving for the start of the season, it's just all a bit up in the air. And I think and obviously there's a little bit of silent partner here, is that Y11, after Toby was appointed, they became the major shareholder in the Ospreys. So, they will have had an input, I'm sure, into what's going on there. I can't comment any more than that, but it'll be very interesting to see how things develop now over the course of the remainder of the season.
And it's weird as well, coming this close to Christmas, this close to a big game. I say that, and the statement is ambiguous. It just says that Toby Booth has left his position. Not even by mutual agreement. It just says he's left. So it does leave questions floating in the air. We're not going to go into that tonight, but it does leave questions up in the air. And there are some fans on socials that are asking uncomfortable questions, but the reality is that guy's lost his job a week before Christmas, just before a game that he would have been building for 3 or 4 months. So, yeah, okay. So we'll we'll finish off in a minute with a chat about his legacy and what we can expect from the future. But we put a post out earlier today just to ask for people's comments. So we'll get a couple of listeners' comments on what it means to them. So Dave has messaged and said that Toby was the light in the darkest period of the Ospreys' history. Brought us through it and equipped us. He was equipped with only minimal resources while nurturing local talent. Thomas has said he made me believe again. He helped instill a passion for the badge I've been missing for some time. Best of luck in whatever you do in the future. RP, great coach, great leader, great person. Nick, not you, says, thanks for making me believe that things are going to get better. And they mentioned some of the big wins, the Leicester game, and for bringing local boys through. A couple of people but didn't get into the spirit of things. And then you always had time for fans. That's the one I was saying about the going back for the kids. Brought back my love of the game. I live in England. I'll happily travel home just because of the feeling. So yeah, it's there's a lot of love for him out there in the fans, and there's a lot of love that I'm sure will develop more over the coming days as we find out a few things more. So I'm gonna leave the final bit with you, mate, about his legacy. So when we look back on the time that Toby Booth spent with the Ospreys in a couple of years' time, um, when the people listening to it get to mine and your age, and they're sitting there going, I remember the days when Toby Booth was in charge. So what are we going to be saying about those days when Toby Booth was in charge of the Ospreys, mate?
He was a very, very good man. He gave the supporters, the club, hope and some enjoyment of rugby again. He developed local talent and gave them opportunities to play at the highest level. And he will probably go down as, unless Matt Jones does a marvellous job, as the most popular coach the Ospreys have had.
And that is a really good way to wrap up the end of Ospreys Eyrie this week, mate. So thank you for your time tonight. I said, like I said to you before we started, I really wasn't expecting to talk to you again this quick, mate. So fingers crossed, I won't talk to you now until after Christmas. But I will wish you all the best for Scarlet's game. I haven't even got my fingers crossed or anything. I think it's going to be a belting game. I think it's going to be a cracking game.
Hopefully, it's a good game of rugby.
Yeah, and I'm sure Toby Booth will be sitting somewhere with a pint in his hand, cheering his boys on because, as you said, there's the coach and then there's the man, and the man that is Toby Booth is a bloody good one. So, even from myself, from a Scarlet, I say thank you to him as well because I think he's improved the standard of coaching and the way we do business in Wales. So, on that note, my friend, I shall bid you good night and enjoy your rugby. All the best.
All the best to you. Thank you.